Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's Crypto Carnival event. My name is Fabian Diab. I'm an NFT analyst at VirgoCX, a leading cryptocurrency exchange here in Canada. And today I have the pleasure of chatting a little bit about the fascinating world of blockchain technology and specifically the concepts of the Metaverse and Web 3.0. With me to do this, I have three panelists who are each at the forefront of the industry. Starting with Alkistis from the project Richverse, we have Agroid from Splinterlands, and Adam from VirgoCX. So hello everyone and welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Here's mine.
Great.
So fellows, why don't we start with a brief introduction from each one of you about both yourselves personally and your respective projects. Please give us a little insight into what it's all about. So Alkistis, why don't you take it away first?
Sure. Thank you, Fabian. All right. So my name is Alkistis. I'm a product partner for Richverse. I'm a designer, very passionate about VR and AR technologies. And a little bit about Richverse. It's a Web3 based social network that is driven by XR technology and community autonomy. The Richverse experience starts with a GameFi, with a classic Monopoly game, which is our starting point for what will be the Metaverse and virtual social network with NFT aggregation transactions. So that's a little bit about the project.
Perfect. And you did mention an interesting concept. You said XR technology. So for those listeners out there who aren't quite familiar with exactly what that means, would you mind just elaborating a little bit more about that?
Of course. XR technologies include everything that has to do with immersive technologies like VR headsets and AR technology that is more integrated into our smartphones or other devices. So everything that combines what we call real life experience with these immersive experiences is opening up right now a lot.
Right. That sounds fascinating. All right. And very excited to speak more about it with you. And for now, I'll pass it on to Agroid. Why don't you give us a little insight into yourself and your project?
Sure, guys. Hey, I'm Agroid. I'm one of the founders of Splinterlands, and I'm the CEO. We're a trading card game based on blockchain. We've been around since May of 2018. We have 1.8 million registered users. I have 800,000 paying customers. We've hit 500,000 DAU. We've played over 1 billion games. We play about 10 million games a day. We're in 142 countries, 10 different languages, and we do something like 3 to 5 million transactions per day. And you can compare that to the entire Ethereum blockchain, which does 1.2. So we're a pretty active game. We're one of the biggest dApps in the world, according to dapradar.com. And we're just growing every single day, more people, more projects. And me personally, I'm a PhD chemist, and I took a really weird route here. I was teaching in my college course, and my kid was so colicky that I needed help grading papers. So I started using this online homework system. It helped my students learn. I told the publishing company, and then they hired me to go tell other professors about how good that could work. And then they got acquired by one of the biggest publishing companies in the world. So I've had something like a 10 to 15 year publishing career in edtech publishing. Now it's blockchain publishing, but helping to shape how video games, how Web 3.0 is delivered, and how we can work with gamers in different metaverses and different technologies and integrate them all into one fantastic user experience for gamers.
All right, sounds great. Yeah, I've personally been following the growth of Splinterlands over time. And I can tell you, I've noticed, just like you said, it's been growing absolutely exponentially, which is really awesome.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. I mean, it keeps me up like 24/7, but man, it's a wonderful product and it's a wonderful community. And I'm proud to be part of it.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. Okay, and Adam, why don't you end us off here?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm the CEO and the founder of VirgoCX. We're a Canadian-based cryptocurrency exchange that was established back in 2019. Previously, we mainly focused on, basically the fiat on-ramp and off-ramp, and to be able to provide Canadians an easier way to, trade cryptos and, at a very affordable cost. and also in a very trustful places. So we decided actually to move into NFT space last year, September. So our vision is trying to basically providing liquidities to the NFT world. A lot of people now do go to OpenSea, go to different platforms to purchase it. But the pain points of that is they're having some issues, trying to liquidate their NFT items or trying to even find sometimes a fair value of their collections. So we initially start off as a manual VIP constrained services for the NFT brokers. We're trying to help, different various collections to be able to bought and to be sold to our customers. And in the very near future, we're also working on a very exciting initiative. Is we're going to actually push out a Web3 fully automated market makers for NFT items. So we are very looking forward to this project to be able to bring more liquidities to the NFT world and trying to let global traders, whoever wants to sell their NFTs or buy their NFTs with us very easily. We look forward to that.
That sounds great. So thank you all. Welcome again, and let's hop right into it. Now, in the gaming industry in particular, the notion of a community seems to be a very prominent factor, as I'm sure you've all realized. We know this simply from observing the traditional gaming industry as well, and how the different communities tend to form, either around particular projects or even particular niches of gaming. So I would like to get your thoughts on the importance of this aspect for the blockchain-based gaming community, and how you think about the intersection of those two things, community and gaming. Where do they fit in together? I personally believe that this factor applies to all three of the projects that we have on the panel today. So I'd like to take a moment to get a little bit of insight from each one of you about it. Alkistis, I've noticed that your particular project, Richverse, places a very large emphasis on community within your game. So could you tell us a little bit more about that decision and what it means for you?
Yes, of course. I would say the aspect of community is just so fundamentally part of anything crypto, right? So where it's going to go, where it's going to lead us is so dependent on the community. It's by nature decentralized, so it's based on communities of people defining it rather than something of a single source of control. So the fact that in crypto games, the player is not just a consumer and not just a user, but it's actually a community builder, that's central to everything that this project is about. It participates, not just participates, but also influences. It's a level above. But I would say that even in traditional games, as people go from just pure entertainment players to professional players, they always participate in the optimization of games. So that community in traditional games was always an inseparable part of just game construction and supporting the continuation of an optimization of a game. So I'm very excited to see that evolving more into crypto gaming.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point you bring up, actually. Communities have always been a really strong part of games, and the players or the users themselves have always tried to give back or participate and actively have a role in shaping that game. And I've noticed that in Richverse in particular, you guys take that to the next level and really try to integrate that concept really, really strongly into your application, which I think is really awesome. Yeah. And also in terms of Splinterlands, aggro, I've actually personally seen a really strong community form around the Splinterland community in the recent months, as you guys have grown exponentially in that time. So I'd love to get a little bit of your insights into this as well.
Yeah, so our motto is people are the value. So everything that we do starts and ends with making sure that people are treated like they are the source of value. They are the core to our existence. They are what we design around, who we design for, and why we're here. So people are the value. And then within that, whenever we design projects, we design around 3 buckets. So you mentioned 2, which is community and gameplay, but we design around a 3rd as well, which is economy. And what we're finding is that you really need the combination of all three of those: community, economy, and gameplay. Community, you want to make sure that people are forming friendships and able to interact and socialize across the platform. For the gameplay, it sounds simple, but you want to make sure it's fun. There's too many examples already of grind to earn rather than play to earn. And then lastly, you want to make sure that the economy works. So as we build, we try to make sure that the smallest minnow to the biggest whale, there's something that is available for them to participate with us, so that, you know, we're not blocking poor people, and we're not just like, you know, we don't want to funnel money from rich people to poor or from poor people to rich. We want an economy where the highest and best participants are earning the most. So that's we design around all three. But yeah, we built a Discord that's now up to like over 110,000 people or something. We have, you know, social medias that are in the hundreds of thousands, and you know, there's some projects that like to intentionally bring in bots and things, but you know, these are our organic channels. We don't like to do that. We want people interacting with real humans, and you know, it's intense because a lot of these guys have large collections. We have people that own millions of dollars worth of cards, so they're not just like passive consumers of a game, but they have this intrinsic desire to shape the way it goes. And frankly, even somebody that owns like $100 of cards, they feel like that's a lot of money to them. And so even though it is less dollars, it might actually represent an even larger share of what their actual tangible assets are. And so we really try to design around this economy, this community, and our people, and in the gameplay and the rewards mechanisms, to make sure that, you know, we're not ignoring the small minnows, and we're not prioritizing the big whales, but we have a nice interactive economy where everybody can participate, everybody can earn, and the degree to which you can earn goes up as you stake more, but that it's not limited to only whales. It is, everybody has an opportunity to participate.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on a really interesting point there, and that was that third factor that you mentioned about economies that also play into this world of blockchain gaming in particular, or really most aspects of the metaverse and Web 3.0. So I do want to get back to that in just a second there. But first, Adam, I'll give you a chance to explain for what you've been building, exactly how a strong community you built up and the importance of that in your project.
Sure. I think, you know, certainly is very professional in this. I don't think I can add any material knowledge to what he's doing. But I think one thing I do want to outline is I think blockchain, the essence of blockchain are as follows. For one is decentralized. So it does actually give ownership to the players to own their whatever cards, PFPs, land. So they have the full ownership of that. So that's actually entirely different than you play a card game like in the real life, right? So it's a little bit of you have everything on the, you know, on the chain, fully recorded. It's very easy to transfer. So the second thing is actually indeed about incentives. Actually, I just took a look, you know, at Splinterlands, you know, website, you know, every single day since there are some rewards being, you know, paid out. And I think that's actually extremely important also to incentivize people to get engaged at early stage. And also, you know, the whole idea about play to earn is super important nowadays, you know, to get people to have the full ownership, not only about the items, but also, you know, to the point of, you know, be the owner of the project. Because if the project grows well, they also get, you know, some money, you know, some experiences with it. So that's actually to the, you know, the nature of blockchain. I think last but not least, I think it's very important to have some fun elements on the blockchain. For a lot of day-to-day users, they're just being, a lot of time they don't understand what a blockchain is. All they know is about Bitcoin. You know, they know it's speculative assets. But I think with the, you know, these NFTs and the, you know, play to earn module to being introduced, I think it definitely brings more kind of killer applications to the users, to the people on the daily for the daily lives, and they can kind of enjoy it, and they can have, you know, the full feeling about what is blockchain and what can blockchain to bring to it. So I do want to say, you know, congratulations to both of you who have done great on this. I think this is immensely important for the whole ecosystem. Obviously, as a cryptocurrency exchanges or NFT brokers, we will be beneficial from that. So we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. And you also brought up a whole range of great points there. And one of them that both you and again Agrod had touched on was the point of economies in these metaverse applications. So why don't we turn back around to that for a moment? We do see that a really big concept that has emerged from blockchain technology is that of play to earn. So this is where users can actually earn money, usually in the form of a native cryptocurrency, but of course that which they can cash out for their desired currency while playing a game. Now, to be quite honest, this has received a little bit of criticism from the traditional gaming communities, especially as of late, because, and they claim, that it diverges from the original point of gaming, where people are being incentivized to play for monetary rewards rather than just the pure enjoyment of it. So I'd like to know from any one of you, how do you perceive the financialization of gaming to affect this industry? Does it really take something away from it? Or is it possible to achieve a balance between making money on one hand, but also keeping the original spirit of gaming alive, right? That's the reason that we all got into it, perhaps as children at first. And I don't know about you, but I'm personally always a gamer at heart. The aspect of fun there that Adam had just mentioned. So maybe you can shed some light on how your project goes about that balance. I've noticed that all your projects have or are incorporating a little bit of play to earn mechanisms, Richverse and Splinterlands. So I'd actually like to go around and get each one of your opinions or perspectives on this. Why don't we start with you, Alkistis?
Sure. This is a very interesting topic, of course. And, as far as I see it, you can always make money doing something that you love. It doesn't mean necessarily that that part takes the fun out of it or ruins it. So there's that aspect. People have been making money out of gaming many different ways in the past, and of other things that may not be the obvious goal. But at the same time, GameFi is still at very early stage. I think it has huge market potential, but one part that I think may be worth examining is that the simple gameplay that is currently mostly available is not fundamentally fun. And I think that's a big point, that users play those games just to earn tokens. So something that's more of a single thread play to earn, digging and selling, is not something that will sustain maybe a long-term healthy operation of a game. And that probably will result in short game cycles. So there's that aspect. On Richverse, our 1.0 product, which is Genesis, the Monopoly game, will start with GameFi 2.0. So that's GameFi a little bit evolved, that integrates cultivation, management, competition, social networking. So we focus on having a more rich game experience, more controllability, and that makes GameFi actually more fun. And it's not just a means to make money. So some of the things that are important for us is there's not just one way to obtain tokens. You can obtain tokens with player versus engine or player versus player modes. And also another point is creating a healthy economic system. So there's an internal circulation system that helps maintain that long-term health. And yeah, just steadily creating a healthy play-to-earn experience. I think that's doable.
Right, yeah, and I really do like the intersection of all those concepts that you guys have been implementing. It seems like you're really emphasizing finding that right balance there, right? And giving people, for whatever reason they decide to join your application, giving everyone a purpose there. So I really like what you're doing on that front. And Agrod, why don't you fill us in a little bit about how Splinterlands approaches that philosophy?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a radical, so excuse me for a moment. But the Web 2.0 to me is pretty dystopian, where you have a very narrow range of companies that are benefiting, that extract wealth from their users, and keep it internal to just the company. And while the companies get exceedingly wealthy, what they do is they extract money and time out of the player base. And what they get back is a little bit of entertainment. So maybe there's something good in that, but that feels a little bit too much to me, like the great reset of you will own nothing and be happy. So that stuff kind of drives me nuts. So what I like about Web3 is that you actually get ownership, you build friendship, and that you get entertainment. And you get all three of those when you have done it correctly. So I don't think it should be if only one or the other. You know, honestly, I respect people's ability to make whatever choices they want, even if I personally think those choices are dumb. So if people just want to go run around and play free-to-play games, go ahead, waste your money, throw it away. That should be your choice, and it should be left up to the market to decide what people want to do with their funds and their finance. But to me, I think it is gross incompetence and fiscal mismanagement to go continue to do that when alternatives exist. And that, you know, if I have the ability to earn, if I have the ability to play these games, to build my social network, to grow my audience, to reach out in social media and do all the things and simultaneously get paid and be a part of the community and share in the growth of the game and the economy, like, why wouldn't I do that? And the people that don't understand that, I would guess, have some very flawed understandings of economics, or a very weird sense of what you're allowed to own or not. I'm not really certain. That perspective, I think, is a pretty narrow-minded one. But again, I think that the market should allow whatever people want to do. If they want to play free-to-play games, great. My players tell me verbatim, I'm never going to play free-to-play games again. Or more specifically, I'm never going to spend money in them again. You know, why? If you have two games that are roughly the same amount of fun, but in one you might own hundreds or thousands of dollars of assets, they might appreciate, you might be able to earn, you might actually have, like, I have people that have bought houses. I've gotten like 36 people that have written me to say that they're millionaires. I mean, why would you participate in some other kind of ecosystem than one that can allow that? Especially if the entertainment value is, you know, roughly equal. So to me, Web 2.0 is dystopian. Web 3.0 has, you know, its rough spots as we're still trying to navigate this entire transition, but it's way more egalitarian than anything Web 2.0 could ever offer.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I believe most people in the traditional gaming space have just really truly yet have the opportunity to siphon over and gain exposure and a better understanding of what it all has to offer. And when you do, I've personally found that, exactly like you had mentioned, you usually see that all the traditional aspects that you love about gaming are right there as well. But now you have some additional utility. You have the benefits of true ownership of in-game assets and the ability to, instead of giving away money to play a game, potentially earn something at the same time. So all in all, it's more of a bonus than something that infringes on the core values of gaming, is how you see it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes from like, I'm going to go see the movies, I'm going to spend 20 bucks at the movies and I'll never get anything back for it, to like, I'm going to go to the movies and they're going to give me like a little plastic doll or something. You know, you get something of value at the same time. So you get the entertainment, but you also get an asset. And in this case, they're all digital assets, which means that I have a global audience for them, can trade them around the clock anywhere in the world at whatever time of my choosing, whatever price I choose to set it at. And that all sounds pretty convenient to me. So I don't understand why I would ever want to like give that up or sacrifice that. But then again, I don't want to force other people to see things my way. So if you want to go waste all your money in free-to-play games, you know, that sounds awesome. Go do that.
Yeah, extremely fair. And I know, you know, everyone here, of course, is pioneers in this space, and you guys have the insights and the foresights to see the trends that are emerging and offer those trends as advantages to your user base. But we do know that a lot of new projects have emerged this year, in particular with the boom of this whole industry, that just throw on the labels of Metaverse or Web 3.0 or whatever catchphrase that, you know, they can think of to attract users and capitalize on those trends without actually delivering anything new or anything of substantial value. And it's a shame to see a lot of that emerging in the space. So how does a project really go about adding true value to a game using the benefits of blockchain technology? What kind of impact do you think this will have on changing the gaming industry going forward, for instance? Whoever would like to answer that, FYI, you feel free.
Yeah, I'll take a shot. So when you're designing economies, you basically have faucets and sinks. And the faucet is where you let new coins into existence, and sinks is where you take them back out of circulation. And then thirdly, you have kind of use cases that temporarily hold those tokens to go do something with them. So when you're designing economies, you have to think through your faucet, your sink, and your use cases. And be wary of the products. Like 10% of the problem to solve is the faucet, and 90% of the problem to solve is the use case. Why should I even own this thing? What can it get me that I can't get anywhere else? What can I do with it here? How do I interact with people here that I can't get somewhere else? It's about providing that unique experience or unique value that you can't get somewhere else. Some kind of unique entertainment, unique friendship, unique status symbol within that organization or group, unique set of rewards, some unique ability. There's like a million different things that you could do, but at its core, you have to be able to provide something that is of value by having burned or having staked or having applied your tokens or your NFTs to do it. And that's roughly, in my opinion, where value comes from. So I would tell users, be wary of projects that have like, high faucet and no utility. Utility to me is the thing that like ultimately dictates how valuable a project will really be.
Definitely. Yep. Agreed there. And there are many possible applications that we all know can fit into the definition of being Metaverse or Web3 related. Gaming is just one of them. But do you think that the application of gaming will be the main bridge to onboard the masses into the metaverse and truly bring Web3 and blockchain technology mainstream? In terms of practical use, of course, right? So everyone by now, or I would hope everyone by now, has at least heard of the term cryptocurrency, blockchain, what have you. But the truth of the matter is that we're still at a very early stage. And to me personally, that's what makes it very exciting and gives a lot of opportunity for innovation here. So it's a blessing, really. But in light of that, we aren't seeing yet the whole world practically adopt it. And we know that that's a curve and it takes time, right? It happens over time. But do you see gaming in particular as one of the main avenues to that global adoption? And if so, how does that all look? What will be the experience that brings the world into this in particular? For example, would it be because of virtual reality capabilities, or perhaps this notion of digital ownership that will be the key element to onboarding users, where those users truly own their own content? So what is the key experience here that draws the world in? Alkistis, would you like to take this one?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk a little bit about that. I think what's very interesting about this question is that gaming has acted as a threshold to new experiences in the past as well, whether that's basic training of how to use a mouse or other technologies like augmented reality and mixed reality. So I would say that it's going to be very critical because it does have a lower threshold for entering the experience of the metaverse. May I say that it sounds also a little bit less scary to people than something that might be more finance oriented, that doesn't have the experience of a game. Also, the community is really going to help with that. Specifically, since I'm very passionate about mixed reality technologies, I'm also interested to see how it's going to evolve, how the metaverse is going to go hand in hand with virtual reality. It may not be the first thing we see be established. I think gaming is going to help people understand more how to interact with NFTs and crypto, but I think the more the VR technologies mature, become more diversified and more accessible, then gaming is going to be the first to introduce it to a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely seems that that's where the trend is going. And then from a perspective, perhaps a little bit outside of gaming, Adam, you've built something a little bit different. So I would like to get your perspective on what other major trends in blockchain can bring people, can bring the world into this space over the next few years.
Yeah, so I think if that's the question, it is actually a quite broader question. So just when it comes to, I think the future use cases for blockchain, which I think will be highly commercialized or potentially bring a lot of populations. So first one is obviously DeFi, decentralized finance. So people will give a really good chance to go to any protocol they would like, no matter what you're trying to do, having some yields. Trying to do some yield farming, do some lending, borrowing, or even do trading. Like they can literally do anything like on Web3 with DeFi. I think this is a huge trend. I think a lot of people have already heard about it. The only thing I would say to the audience is just make sure that you properly manage your private keys and properly know some kind of, IT security risks. Don't, you just use a MetaMask for the sake of using it. Ideally, if you just have a hardware connect to it, that would be great. So the second thing I would say is NFT. So I think NFT previously was like a really abstract concept. Nobody knows what an NFT is. But recently, because of the the popularness for the avatar-based projects coming up, such as apes, there are a few more like doodles, cool cats, all these ones coming up. I think now there's so many movie stars, so many people who have a lot impacts, even connecting their profile pictures to Twitter's, right? Now you can literally just use Twitter profile picture to become a blockchain-based image. Which I really even helps some of our clients in person. They were saying, oh, how could I connect my NFT to my Twitter account? And they're actually trying to play that. I think the power of being able to display their NFT collections to the daily lives is becoming bigger and bigger, especially after connecting with some big traditional media technology companies. I think this fact will becoming a lot bigger. And I think a lot of assets, a lot of people who have wealth will now start to think about allocating some percentage of their assets to not only alternative assets such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, but also NFTs. I think that will also gain a lot of traction. Yeah, I think last but not least, I think just to the gaming fact, I personally have been always looking forward to a game that can blow my mind. Essentially what that is, it's it give me the same idea of playing games maybe on PlayStation, play games on computer, give me some kind of good quality animations. But in the meantime, I own everything and I can earn money. I think if that comes up, I think in the future, whatever that game was produced by the previous centralized firms that owns everything to Edge's point will just be outdated. And I think that quality will need to come, but I think I'm already seeing the quality has been improving a lot, and I'm looking forward to this to get continuously improved.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And we're already seeing a lot of even centralized gaming companies are coming into the space and announcing that they plan to incorporate these different aspects of blockchain, whether it's NFTs or cryptocurrency tokens or any of these aspects into their games, because we all recognize the potential. It definitely brings benefits that were harder to accomplish, or in some cases, maybe almost impossible to do without this technology. But on that, it's also very possible, and you do hear the narrative a lot, that while blockchain in particular brings so many benefits that we just simply didn't have before in terms of its applications, it may need to coexist with centralized systems in the future because they each kind of have a little bit of their pros and cons, right? Currently, at the current stage, for example, on the Ethereum network, we do know that transaction fees seem to be a little bit higher for conducting transactions and things of that nature. So there's still an enormous use case for, let's say, DeFi technology, despite those high transaction fees, because the benefits that they bring are just so great. But Adam, do you see in the future that there will be not necessarily a winner-take-all situation, but more of a coexistence where there's a place for both centralized methods of this technology for those users who opt to use or who prioritize those benefits that it brings, and then the decentralized portion for the users who prioritize what that has to offer over there? How would you feel about that?
I feel like, centralization will always have a place. This is not going to be gone. I think, in the future, what's going to be more likely to happen is a hybrid of centralization and decentralizations. Even for, any apps, I think, there are a lot of facts. You just have to build on centralized layers. Some people may say, okay, I can put everything on decentralized, but in the end, you're kind of losing a little bit efficiencies, and also the user experiences in it are not as good. So I think in the future, if we want to have something that's really, can give us a really good experiences, no matter what we're looking at, I think it will need some kind of combinations. And I think if centralized entities can recognize that, and they really understand, okay, there are certain things that users really care. You want to give the ownership back to them, and they make some radical change to their organization structure. If that's even possible, I don't know why it's possible now. That will really increase their, trust levelness, and also bring this whole economy much more vibrant. I think this is something really good. And also decentralized side, I'm looking forward to the technology to go to the next level. To your point, to have lower that gas fee. We already have, different side chains such as Polygon, Avalanche, even Atrium, like all those providers. But in the end, even for these providers, they're not even up to speed of what we're looking for a really, highly efficient environment. So I think the technology still has to go a little bit further. And I think in the end, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see something that's going to be highly efficient, highly entertaining. And in the meantime, users that even do not feel this is blockchain, right? And I think this is something we want to go.
Yeah, I'd go so far as to say, if you have gas fees in your game, it will kill the fun. Yeah. So like when we design around economy, gameplay, and community, like part of designing around the economy, like we made a pretty weird choice to go be on Steam initially and Hive after it forked. It's not a super well-known chain, but like when we were building our game back in 2018 and we were staring at CryptoKitties blowing up, we said, NFTs are amazing. Collectability is cool, but that's just a start. We really ought to be a game. And because a couple of kittens are enough to go bring down Ethereum, that's probably not the place to go build a long-term business. And in part, we were looking at that and saying, hey, the gas fees that are here aren't sustainable. So like if you look at some of the games that are built over there, they might have like a $5 card and a $125 gas fee. How are you going to trade your $5 card? But not only how are you going to trade it, how are you going to trust that you can even buy it in the first place and ever be able to go see it as anything just other than a sunk cost? That if you can't trade it, then it doesn't matter if it's $5 or not. It's money that's gone. So I think it also gets back to like the challenges of onboarding users, which was one of the things that this panel was talking about. That like how do you bring somebody on if your ask is go to the centralized exchange, give them your bank account info, purchase Ethereum for the first time, download MetaMask, transfer funds to the MetaMask, then make your first transaction and hope that the $80 to $200 in gas you just spent goes through, and that's your first step. And then every time that you want to play, there's additional fees. I mean, honestly, it doesn't even matter what the fee is, as long as the platform is requiring you to pay fees every time that you're clicking, trading, exchanging, or doing something. I think players will find that ceases to be fun. So maybe you can get away with that with some hype and some short-term experience, but I think that'll go it goes past like grind to earn into like grind to earn while you nickel and dime me. And like that, I think that'll just leave a bad taste in players' mouths. So figuring out this technology and the scaling so that you're working with blockchains that don't have gas fees, because even if they start low, you know, once they get popular, the gas fees just go up. So that becomes an impediment and barrier to entry. So you gotta figure out how all these things could work, and it's a challenge. And I think that the guys that like really nail a good new user experience and can take, you know, a Facebook mom that might want to be playing Words with Friends or something and turn them into a, you know, blockchain gamer without even really knowing, like that's the creme de la creme. That's the next major innovation in the space, is making that transition for a normie to be as smooth and frictionless as possible.
Yeah, and it almost does feel like in the absence of that, right? When you do have these really high transaction fees, if there isn't a suitable solution, it, in a sense, almost brings us back to what we were trying to move away from or innovate on top of in the first place. Like you were saying, Agrod, about the traditional gaming world and how it's a money sink, where in order to play, it's actually draining your money at the same time. And all of you are trying to innovate on top of that. In order to do so, you also need to take into account that the cost to do so, of course, don't outweigh those monetary benefits. So I'm curious, on your end, how are you approaching the solution for that?
Yeah, I mean, we are currently operating on Hive. We're probably going to be here for a while still, but we're looking at as much technology and as many technology advancements as possible that make it so that you can get very high throughput for the number of transactions, and just keep the amount of smart contracts that are allowed like really, really low. It's kind of funky. Like we run into a bunch of legal concerns in places. We run into you know, technological concerns, but ultimately, like the only thing that really matters in the space, if you believe people are the value, and then you want to bring as much value to your community and ecosystem as possible, what that really means is that you have to house as many people as possible. And that means that you have to find the blockchain technology that can scale into the millions of transactions and keep your gas fees to basically non-existent, or possibly an alternative to that is allowing the centralized parties to pay on behalf of the users. So those are kind of like a couple of the criteria. I think there's going to be a number of technological innovations that are coming out over the couple of next years, you know, as we have something like 2,000 different cryptocurrency projects right now. I imagine more are going to keep coming. And to me, it's finding the ones that have figured out how to scale and do so in a way where you're not just trying to put all of human ingenuity through one set of servers, because that it doesn't work. So you got to be kind of picky and choosy about what you're doing, why you're doing it, have like laser focus on that, and then I think blockchain can work. But you know, what we're doing on Hive works now, and I think I can scale it, you know, 10x, 100x, maybe 1,000x from where we are. But at some point, you know, I think we're going to have to focus on technologies that are even more scalable than what we're doing. And I would honestly argue that I think we're on one of the most scalable technologies as of today.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how it's all a technological innovation problem at the end of the day. And there are great solutions today, and we can imagine that they'll only get better over time as well. So all very exciting. We know we're at early stages of this. I appreciate what everyone are doing in order to try to innovate as quickly as possible and help onboard the masses and the users and show them that, look, guys, we have solutions to some of the worries that you initially had with blockchain. And in the grand scheme of things, we can offer you something that's a net benefit that you wouldn't get elsewhere in whatever the respective domain is, whether it's gaming or finance or what have you. I know, Adam, for instance, over at Virgo, you take a huge emphasis on onboarding users by trying to offer some of the best rates possible to bring down the total cost for people to get into this space. So just as an example, that's where I see it going. And like you've all mentioned, it does seem to be improving at truly an exponential rate from here. So we've been talking a lot about all these kind of innovations on the horizon. But I'm curious now, what's the path to this adoption? And then what do you see what do you see as some of the biggest milestones that come next? So for an instance, if we look out, let's say 5 to 10 years from now into the future, what else is on the horizon here? You could almost call it the roadmap of the industry, right? What does the roadmap to innovation here look like in your view? And whoever would feel free to jump in on this one, please be my guest.
Go for it.
Okay, just a comment. I think that the most exciting part of what we're going to see in the next 10 years is how crypto is going to be really part of our lives in more ways than one. And I think that by nature, community-based nature of everything that's going to evolve, then there's going to be a lot of social responsibility potentially, and impact that will come from the community part that's being built. So I think that the market will actually evolve into that direction. That's one part that I was going to mention. And the other part is just the impact on people's lives, that it's going to be evolving from play to earn, at least from the crypto games that we've been talking about, and it's going to go beyond entertainment and income. And I think it's exciting to see glimpses of that already, but how connections are going to be built, friendships are going to be built, knowledge is going to be one thing that's going to become a really big part of what people will be earning from these communities. So I think that's going to start being a big part of the evolution of Web 3.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I put my when I get out my crystal ball and I kind of shake it and polish it a bit and I start looking into it, I see big brands. You know, as cryptocurrency basically represents the single largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world. You know, every single major national corporation is trying to figure out a strategy around it, what they're going to do with it, how they deal with it, how they're going to incorporate it, how they'll accept it, how they'll store it, how they'll implement games, how they'll implement communities, VR, AR, Metaverse, like literally any buzzword that crosses somebody's desk, they're wondering, how do I incorporate this? So the stage we're at now is sort of like, I think they're not entirely passive. I know I've talked to some of the biggest companies in the world, and I know that they're actively like looking, innovating, talking to companies and trying to figure out what the companies are doing and how their big organization should be responding to it. But ultimately it's going to be, you know, every Fortune 100 company is going to have a crypto and NFT subsection of their overall business plan. How are we integrating, utilizing, and paying out in crypto is going to be a part of every Fortune 100 company. So it gets back to what Adam was saying of like, you know, it's not going to be like, there's going to be this kind of spectrum of things that are decentralized and centralized. And so like, you'll still have centralized entities, but the centralized entity will have to figure out how do they interact with these decentralized tokens, decentralized communities, and have a plan for how they manage that. But big picture, brands are coming.
Wow, that's truly fascinating. So the way that you see it, or the vision of the future, is that no matter what industry or a line of business you're in, there's always a place for this technology to fit in and improve that user experience, correct?
Yeah, at the bare minimum, they'll want to start taking cryptocurrencies, right? Like as you know, crypto prices go up and down, but we built a $2 trillion industry in 10 years. What do you think it's going to be in another 10? I mean, this thing is flying off the handle. I mean, and I know it goes up and it goes down, but it's basically this parabolic rise right now as crypto eats the world. So every single business is going to have some kind of understanding of what the hell they're going to do and how they're going to interact with these people, from giant whales that like that don't act like standard business people. You know, these are the guys that are in like neon shorts in the middle of winter hanging out doing dance videos. Like these are kind of like this weird non-business people that you might be familiar with, but that's going to be one of your major customers. And that ecosystem and ethos of what we care about as consumers is all going to change. And your business, if you operate one, will have to consider this substantial portion. You know, right now it might only be 5% of your users or something, but wait 10 years, this is the trend. This is where people are going. You think millennials are all just going to like throw their money into gold and trust the big banks and the big stock funds to take care of them? You're out of your mind. I mean, this is where everything is going.
Yeah, you definitely see it in what people want and what those people have been expressing. And that's, I think, why we see a lot of the world's economy siphoning off into this part of the industry. It represents the fact that people are turning their attention here. There's something more for them here that they couldn't get elsewhere in terms of the benefits it brings. And we see it. We see it every single day, or like you said, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, it does fluctuate quite rapidly, but the long-term trend is definitely there.
Yeah,
and
the world is totally broken. You go look at that
yeah.
like hockey stick graph of like how people hold money and who owns what. It's completely broken. You know, like you would expect some of the most productive people in society to be like a little bit more wealthy than everybody else. But that's not what we have. We have this like absurd wealth in like 0.001% of the world, and insane poverty for basically everybody else. And where you don't see that kind of distribution is gaming. I mean, gaming can, like, the rules aren't quite as broken in the rules are broken in real life, but they're actually somewhat fair in these games and ecosystems where people choose not to participate. So, you know, one of the funkiest TED Talks I saw recently was that in up to like the age 21, you get about 10,000 hours of education. You also get about 10,000 hours of gaming. Like you have become as much of a gaming expert by 21 as you have been of like your high school education in total. So, you know, people are going to move into these ecosystems where they feel valued, where it's fair, where there's the ability to earn, where there's some kind of egalitarianism and equality, maybe not in terms of like how much everybody has, but in your opportunity to earn, and that it's not quite so broken as it is in the real world. And so I think people are going to keep migrating to these digital communities that innovate faster, that have fairer systems, that have way more opportunity than you might have, you know, if you just participate in real world activities day in and day out. And, you know, at the end of the day, when you have enough money and you have a lot of friends, like the only thing left to do is get entertained. And so whoever can do that best, I think, will ultimately win. But it's going to come with these aspects of asset ownership, in-depth friendship, and your ability to truly provide a unique and entertaining experience.
Yeah, let me tell you, I can be the first one to admit that I can definitely relate to that. I've been a gamer for most of my life at heart, spent a lot of my high school days gaming, and I always thought to myself, if there was a way to make this sustainable and bring in even more value and more real world economic benefit into it, why not? Completely honestly, why not? And I don't hesitate to say that I believe that most of the world, and if not most yet, they'll get around to it, but most of the world would agree with that notion verbatim. Yeah, and I mean, on this note, because it's such an interesting topic, I did want to get a little bit about each one of your opinions on this. So finally, Adam, where do you see this whole innovation in this industry going long term? Over the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see it headed? And how is your model incorporating that too?
Sure. I think maybe I can take a different perspective. So I think when it comes to the future trend, one thing we have to look at is about regulations. So I think there will be, some kind of constant battle between innovations and how the regulatory body thinks what we should do. So this has been very commonly seen in the recent years, especially as fiat exchanges. We have seen how many regulations are trying to put on the crypto industry and how many kind of things you have to change on how to run a business. So this is actually just going to getting more and more. It's never going to slow down as government realize, oh, they have to now kind of putting a lot of investor protections for good things, but also in the meantime also trying to slow down innovation a little bit unless they can understand it. So I think that's one perspective. But there will be also another perspective, which is DAO, right? So DAO has becoming more and more prominent in the recent years. So people are arguing that, I'm not a centralized organizations, and every single decision point is giving back to the users. So I have a DAO mechanism. So whoever has a core token, they decide what to do. So in the end, they kind of want to have that, to have one model that is running in parallel to what a global regulation may be. So to have those two things running at the same time, I'm actually very interested to see how DAO can potentially break out of the circle, where DAO even be able to somehow reduce some kind of the regulatory burden and run their own thing without being kind of chased around by the global regulators. I'm actually really looking forward to that. And I think there's a lot of talk about, why DAO should not be kind of falling under the current regulations, because it's everything going back to people. But in the end, there will be still, some people running it. But I think, in the future, in order to have a more innovative, decentralized world, is we have to do a lot of more education to the regulators and let them know that we're doing something good. It's not like, those wild days back in 10 years ago, everybody just ICO, pump and dump. But now we're really trying to do something, creative, something fundamental to users, not something just to try for the money sake. And also in the meantime, what's the decision mechanism, right? And how can we have like any product that can be built on a decentralized layer, and also decision point also can be fully decentralized. So this is something very fascinating. And I think if that can run out well, yeah, I think we're going to have a very different world than what we have right now.
Yeah, I think we all see it here. We're all seeing it happen right in front of us. But like I said, still very, very early stages. But that's what makes it exciting, right? And everyone on this panel here is pioneers in that industry. So, I mean, unfortunately, I wish we could truly go on talking about all of this for hours, but it does look like we're coming to an end here. So the insight that I'm personally getting from this conversation has been absolutely nothing short of amazing. And I'm sure our listeners here would agree as well. So on that note, why don't you each all leave our listeners with a final note about where they could go to perhaps dive deeper and learn a little bit more about each one of your amazing projects and what you bring to the space. Alkistis, let's start with you and then go down the road.
Sure. I love if people can follow our Twitter account. You can find all of our social media holds on richverse.io, and we'd love to hear from you.
Sounds good. And Agrode, where would users go to learn a little bit more about what you have to offer in this space?
Sure. I'd love it if your users and listeners come and play the game with us. We're just at splinterlands.com. You can interact with people in the game just through the game, but we have a pretty lively Discord group. That's discord.splinterlands.com. And you can also find us at our Telegram, which is Splinterlands HQ. Lastly, we're on Twitter, so check us out at Splinterland and you get updates. But break the fourth wall, come hang out with us and see what kind of community we built.
Yeah, I always do advocate. It's important to get involved to really truly understand what something's all about.
Yep.
And Adam, why don't you end us off on that note?
Great, yeah. So I know this is certainly a global audience. Previously, we have been only focused on Canadian markets. But I would say like the one of the first global initiated product for our NFT liquidity tool is coming out in the next 1 or 2 months. So if you have NFTs that you want to sell, and if you don't find liquidity somewhere else, come check it out. And you should be able to, hopefully you can find some decent price. You can always liquidate your positions.
Right. Awesome. All right, guys, it was a pleasure. I hope we'll get the chance to do this sometime again. And in the meantime, for all the listeners out there, please do take a moment to check out every one of the pages that these panelists have just recommended to you. Get a little deeper insight into each one of their projects, and you can always feel free to reach out on their communication channels like the Discords and the Telegrams if you have any further questions from there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.